lightly doped within these N wells to call and work with them. Along with these N cells, then you add a thin layer of SiO2, which is the insulator, which also acts between which insulates the gate and the substrate. So this is the oxide part of the MOSFET, which is your metal oxide semiconductor. This is the oxide part of it. On top of it, you would do a heavily doped or a conductive polysilicon gate or a metal oxide gate, and this can be understood by either increasing the conductivity of the material by either depositing metal in it or using a better high K dielectric or high conductive dielectric. The dimension of the gate along the source path is called the length. That is very important. And along the perpendicular to the length is the width. So the W by L of the channel that you describe is this particular portion. Silicon dioxide is essentially glass. Glass is a very good insulator, and no current can flow through the MOSFET device. Thus, what they do is they take the silicon dioxide layer, is sandwiched between the metal gate electrode and the P-type channel. In these three materials that give the MOSFET its name: metal called the gate electrode, oxide the SiO2, semiconductor being the substrate, which is the FET. Now, the channel region which is present shown in the figure above is what is your P substrate body that is shown. It is this effective length of this channel, and it takes into account the diffusion that occurs during the implantation in the source and the drain regions. How is this channel created for the current flow? Channel is created based upon PN junctions and the electric field. At first glance, you can look at an NMOS device and you would see that there is no current flow initially. So that is because you have got the two PN junctions present and they are reverse biased. And once when they get forward biased is when the current will flow in both the junctions. So where are the two junctions that you identify? You will find one of the PN junctions between the source and the bulk, and the other PN junction between the drain and the bulk, or drain and the body. Given above are the various symbols and the ways the representation has been done for the PMOS and NMOS devices. Current cannot flow into a channel from the drain, as this requires current flowing from an N-type region, which is a cathode, into a P-type region, which is an anode. Similarly, current cannot flow into a channel, that is from the source, as this requires current flowing from an N-type cathode into a P-type anode. So note that current cannot flow into or out of the channel that is from the gate, as a silicon insulator is very good. Silicon dioxide is a very good insulator. This is a factor that you have to always remember, especially when you're doing your gain understanding and feedback circuits. And this is principally the reason why it helps in our analysis later stages, that there is no current flow within the gate of the device. At max, you can only have a voltage difference between the two terminals. There is some amount of current which is called the leakage current, that is present due to the mobile carriers presented. That is going to be very small, and this leakage current is a factor that is going to come into picture when you're working with very sensitive devices, low power devices, and also when you're working with RF devices where leakage can cause a lot of noise. So remember this one fact. An NMOS device may be indeed useless if no current could flow. So there is a method to modify the channel so that the current can flow. The method to do is that you induce a channel, make a connection between the source and the drain by creating a thin layer of N-type channel between them. So how does the channel get created? For inducing a channel, we place a positive voltage at the gate electrode. This creates an electric field within the P-type substrate, which pushes the positively charged holes in the P-type substrate away from the gate. So a thin depletion layer is formed, as shown in the white region here, in the silicon under the gate. The electric field under the gate will repel the positively charged, but will attract the negatively charged electrons. We also see that the many of the free electrons attracted to the gate come from the heavily doped N wells called the source and drain. So what you will find that around the source and the drain also this depletion region might get formed. So how does this silicon insulator separate? So now what happens is, as you go along the line, these electrodes or free electrons which are possible, which will now slightly try to pile up on top of each of the silicon substrate under the silicon. As a result, an inversion layer is created. Inversion layer is a thin layer in the p-type silicon where the majority of carriers are actually free electrons. This inversion layer forms the n-type conducting channel, connecting the n plus drain to the n plus source. By applying a positive voltage to the gate, we have induced a conducting channel. So this means that it doesn't encounter any more PN junctions. So we have now forward bias the PN junctions where there is a potential difference applied and a field is created. Now, this is a very common interview question which is asked. So, will any positive gate voltage suffice for inducing a channel, or must this gate voltage be somehow sufficiently large? So, a gate voltage must actually be sufficiently large to create an inversion layer, because you have to have some amount of energy needs to be applied for the layers to be created and for the depletion layer to be created. Once the depletion layer is created is when you will have the MOSFET creation. And the way it has to be is the voltage value should exceed the threshold voltage of the device, which is called VT. So the gate to source voltage is where your positive bias is applied for one of the diode voltages. That has to be greater than your voltage VT, and that is exponentially proportional to the difference between the two values. So the current, that is amount of current that can be sent through the channel, directly depends upon how much of the VT, how much of this gate voltage greater than the VT, and how much of the channel is created. And this channel, treat this channel like a highway, and as you increase the difference, the VGS minus VT value, you move from a 4-lane highway to a 1-lane highway as you reduce the difference. So this is called the overdrive voltage by some people, and I will commonly be using this as overdrive voltage as a common point of describing the difference between VGS minus VT. So now let us look at the case where your VGS is between 0 and VT. So your VGS is less than VT. What happens? We'll have a fundamental assumption saying the VSB, let it be 0. Okay, so the source to bulk value will be 0, and with that we will take understanding what is this threshold value. Now let the threshold value be anywhere between 0.3 to 0.5, which is typical of all the process technologies right now. When there is threshold voltage when your VGS voltage is less than the threshold voltage, the channel doesn't exist, and therefore no current can flow between the drain and the source. The transistor is said to be in the cutoff mode. Now, what is cutoff mode? Cutoff mode is when you don't have any current flow between the drain and source. That is because the PN junction between the source and the bulk is still not turned on, and only when it gets turned on you will have some amount of current flow. So this is the cutoff mode. Now we will look at the next one where the VGS is greater than 0, VGS is greater than the VT, but the VDS is 0. That is, the drain to source voltage is 0. So a channel is formed here, but there is no current flow still, because between the drain and the source there is no potential difference. And as we know, for a current to flow, you need to have a potential difference between the 2 points, and that is not present here. So you will not find any drain current flowing through the device. So what happens is a channel is formed, But the channel is in transistor in such a situation that as a VGS controlled resistor, meaning an increase in the VGS minus VT results in the increase of a channel conductivity and hence reduction in the resistance value. As the resistance reduces, the conductivity increases corollarily, and this also occurs when the difference between the drain and source comes into place. So this is otherwise called channel enhancement. The process of increasing the induced channel conductivity by increasing the excess gate voltage is known as channel enhancement. And this is where the MOS gets its name called enhancement MOSFET. Now, if you look at the third case, wherein VGS is greater than 0, VGS is greater than VT. So there is a positive value. VGS minus VT is a non-zero value. And the VDS is smaller than VGS minus VT. In this particular case, the transistor operates in what is called the triode mode or a linear mode, wherein as the values gradually increases, the VDS value gradually increases till a certain point, the current also varies. Here it is assumed that the VGS minus VT is constant and the VDS is varied. But you remember, current you need to have both the drain PN junction to be in forward bias when you're operating. In this particular case, only one of the junctions is available and the other junction is working like a resistor where it is still near the knee voltage. You're working around the region of the knee voltage. And that is the reason why it is happening. Now, if you apply the voltage greater and the VDS improves, you will see that the IDS also improve. So this is typically where we call the linear region, where the amount of current that is flowing through the device within the device is directly proportional to the VGS minus VT overdrive voltage and over total amount of what is the value between the drain and the source. This understanding is important because when you enter into the range where you want to make it work in low power devices, you want to have a resistive action when the device, or when you want to replace a transistor in place of a resistor, typically the resistor is biased in this operation mode, where you have a linear operation and there's a direct correlation to the amount of voltage applied and the amount of current induced into the channel due to it. So this is the technique that people started using to clear out resistors operation with respect to the in place of a transistor. You replace a transistor in place of a fixed resistor. In the when you look at the third case, where VDS is still less than VT, but the VDS is significantly large. So for small VDS, we will see that the drain current is directly proportional to the capital VDS. In other words, if the drain to source voltage is 0, the drain current ID is 0. Or if the voltage VDS increases by 10%, the drain current will likewise increase by 10%. So this is behaving like a resistor. In other words, for small values of VDS, we can define the channel resistance RDS as VDS by ID. So this is a graphs which shows the various plots with respect to how the VGS responds. This is the resistance value depends on the conductivity of the induced channel, which in turn is dependent on the VGS minus VT. So as you increase the VGS minus VT value from 0.51 volt, you will see the conductivity going up, and when the conductivity goes up, your resistance falls and the amount of current that flows through the channel also increases. So RDS is actually a function of the VGS minus VT, or the overdrive voltage. So it's behaving like a voltage controlled resistor, provided the VDS is very small. So do you have any questions here to ask?
So, could you please explain about the body, how the body comes into play and what effects it will have if the VSB is not zero?
So I will come to that. I'll probably do it in some next few slides which I have. Okay. Apart from that, you have any other questions?
Yeah, and also the subthreshold region of operation, when VGS is less than VT, how it
Mhm.
behaves, that can also be included here, I think.
Right. So looks like you guys are interested in the advanced stuff. So shall I directly go to the advanced stuff and skip this?
No, it's okay. It's okay. We'll wait.
No, because your questions are all advanced stuff, and if not, we can directly go there. It looks like if you're familiar, so I don't mind going forward.
No, we can skim through all the slides, I think.
Skimming is good enough for you?
Yes, I.
Okay, fine. Let's then quickly skim through that. Looks like it's all familiar stuff, so let's get through faster. So
You can stress
in
where it
case,
is important, maybe. You can stress the points which are important. So there you can spend the time, I think.
fine, we will spend that. So this is something familiar to all of you in that case. So as you increase the VDS, it will result in decreasing the channel conductivity. Okay. Let me do it in this way. Let me ask in a question and answer format so that I know if stress needs to be put here. So when does pinch off occur in this particular case? So all four of you can. So I have also, there's also an answer where there is pinch off, but how does get pinch off come into picture? It's a common interview question which is asked in analog circuit design. So when does pinch off occur? The answer is already there. I just want one of the four of you to tell me when and how do you induce a pinch off? Hello? Nobody wants to respond?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, we can see that there is a drop of voltage what you have applied from source to drain end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as we keep
Okay.
on increasing VDS,
Mm-hmm.
so the drop reduction is going to decrease at the drain part.
Where you will see the drop?
From gate to source, we can see that there is no drop. The source will be connected to VDS. If
Okay.
you if you see D is more potential, D is having more positive compared to source.
Okay.
So the potential drop will be linear. It will be like it will be drop will be reduced from source to drain when you consider.
No, where is the drop having? Where is the voltage drop that you're mentioning here? That is the
From
key point here. That is a key understanding. You're
from
saying
gate
voltage drop.
to source there will be drops there.
No, that is understanding in a schematic way. Now tell me how in the channel form. That is how commonly people understand that, okay, there will be a drop across the voltage, it is understandable. But where do you see the voltage drop here? What causes the voltage drop?
Across the channel we will see the voltage drop.
Right, but why do you see a voltage drop?
Here when we, for example, first we assume source and drain are connected to ground.
Okay.
Nothing is connected. So as current is not flowing, we can see that potential between gate and channel will be constant throughout the channel.
Okay.
That's the first point. But
Okay.
when we try to, so initially the from under the gate inside the channel, the potential is constant if nothing
Okay.
voltage is applied.
Okay.
When drain to source voltage is applied, if we consider a resistor, we can see that drop will be there across the resistor.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we apply the same concept here
Okay.
across the channel, we can see that at the source we can assume that drain to source will be at zero potential and drain will be at positive potential.
Okay.
We can then we can say that this is similar to a resistor as channel is formed after forming the channel.
Okay.
So when channel is formed, as drain is having higher potential and source is having zero potential, we can see that the gate to source drop will be similar as before. when no
Okay.
voltage is applied.
Okay.
So, but here drain is having positive potential.
Okay.
So the drop will be keep on decreasing when you go from source to drain.
Right.
Yes. Because of that, the initial condition what the gate is having, that we have to be more than VT,
Okay.
then only channel is formed. Those conditions will be
Okay.
the conditions will be disturbed by this drain voltage. So we
Okay.
are not able to see any channel at the drain end.
Okay.